is 5 minutes and counting.
There's been another mass shooting in America. This time in
From this new video,
but the more information that has come out, the more overblown this all seems.
to her top aides and surrogates going on the offensive.
Why would you release information that is so incomplete when you haven't even seen the material yourself 11 days before an election?
Now, Clinton's got a new ad out this morning. It is perhaps a remake of perhaps one of the most famous political ads of all time, that 1964 Daisy ad about nuclear weapons getting into the wrong hands. This time, of course, it is about Donald Trump. Clinton now trying to make her closing arguments, Robin. She is really looking to move past this email controversy once again.
Some new information on a major lawsuit filed by the NAACP. It was just filed at the beginning of this week, and it's getting a lot of attention. The group claims thousands of voters are being illegally removed from the polls in North Carolina, from voting rolls. The head of the state's chapter says a disproportionate number of those voters are black and calls North Carolina ground zero for voter suppression.
As for Donald Trump, his campaign is denouncing a show of support from the KKK's official newspaper, as in the Ku Klux Klan. The issue seen here borrows Trump's slogan, "Make America Great Again." It says the way to greatness is to become a, quote, white Christian republic. Let's bring in CNN's Sarah Murray with more. She's in Washington. Good morning.
Good morning, Carol. The Trump campaign was very quick to offer a rebuke of this endorsement from the newspaper. I want to read to you the statement they put out saying this publication is repulsive and their views do not represent the tens of millions of Americans who are uniting behind our campaign. And this sort of matches what we saw from them yesterday when they immediately condemned robocalls from a white supremacist on behalf of Donald Trump, but not from the Trump campaign, that were designed to slander third-party candidate Evan McMullin. But the reason this has been an issue for Donald Trump is we have seen him over the course of the last year and a half struggle for a while to separate himself from David Duke. It took him a couple of attempts to condemn David Duke. And we also have seen him retweet white supremacists to his millions of Twitter followers. Now, a while back, the campaign realized this was a problem. People thought Donald Trump was racist. They thought the GOP nominee was racist. So they made a concerted effort for him to make appeals to black voters to go campaign in some inner cities and talk about how he wants to run to be president for everyone. Now, obviously, as we're looking at these early vote totals, we still are seeing a depressed African-American turnout, and we certainly haven't seen Donald Trump make very much in terms of inroads with this community. They may not be excited for Hillary Clinton, but we're not seeing them turn out in droves for Donald Trump either. But one thing is clear, the Trump campaign does appear to have sort of learned a lesson about distancing themselves quickly when they get this kind of support.
Russia's defense minister Sergei Shoigu says a Russian aircraft carrier group headed by an aircraft carrier and a battle cruiser has reached the Mediterranean. Shoigu criticized NATO for applying pressure on countries to deny port access to the Russian warships. But he added they have all the necessary supplies to continue sailing. The minister said Western countries need to decide who they are actually fighting, terrorists or Russia. He said an absence of coordinated action among different parties in Syria is hindering a political settlement.
Russia's huge arsenal and mighty firepower have allowed the Assad regime to stay in power and his forces to strengthen. Nowhere has this might been felt more than in the divided city of Aleppo. Now, after a 2-week humanitarian pause, Russia's threatening to resume a full-scale bombing of Aleppo.
All attempts made by the militants in the city of Aleppo to break out have failed. The terrorists suffered heavy losses in manpower, hardware and military equipment. They've no chance to break out of the city. To avoid needless casualties, the Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation has announced a humanitarian pause in Aleppo on the 4th of November from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. local time. All humanitarian corridors in Aleppo previously prepared by Russia will operate for the exit of civilians and militants.
An offensive rebels launched to break the siege on their strongholds in the east is in its 6th day. They are vowing to press on with it.
We thought breaking the first lines of defense will take a long time, but with the grace of God, we broke their defenses in half the time we anticipated.
A number of Syrian rebel groups are involved in the offensive, including the Free Syrian Army, the Conquest Army, and a coalition calling itself the Aleppo Operation Room. Russia halted its airstrikes on Aleppo in mid-October to allow a humanitarian pulse for civilians and rebels to leave the city in safety. But Syrian jets and helicopters have continued their raids on the city, dropping barrel bombs, cluster bombs, and bunker busters.
Well, Russia's Federation Council Chairman Valentina Matvienko has said Moscow will not cede any disputed Pacific islands to Japan. She's now in Japan to lay the groundwork for President Vladimir Putin's upcoming visit. Moscow and Tokyo have been disputing over the 4 Pacific islands known as the Southern Kuriles in Russia and the Northern Territories in Japan. While this territorial row has kept the two countries from signing a peace treaty formally ending their World War II hostilities.
President Barack Obama says the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers is examining whether the 4-state Dakota Access Oil Pipeline can be rerouted in North Dakota to alleviate the concerns of American Indians. The 1,200-mile, $3.8 billion pipeline will carry oil through North and South Dakota and will skirt the Standing Rock Sioux Reservation on the border. The tribe objects to the project, saying it could threaten drinking water and destroy sacred sites. The months-long protest has led to over 400 arrests since August.
According to CNN, Russian authorities have sealed off Amnesty International's office in Moscow as of Wednesday. Staffers arrived in the morning to find the locks and an alarm had been removed, and the electricity supply appeared to have been cut off. Amnesty rents their Moscow offices from the municipal government and hopes the lockout is due to a simple administrative error. The group contends that it fulfilled its obligation as tenants. This follows a call by Amnesty on Tuesday for an investigation over allegations of torture of Russian activists in detention centers.
Tonight, the specter of a November surprise from Kim Jong-un raises serious concerns from Seoul to Washington. U.S. military officials CNN spoke to say there are no signs tonight that North Korea is preparing for a medium-range ballistic missile test, as some reports suggest. But they stress those medium-range missiles, called Musadans, are fired from road mobile launchers, and a launch could happen at any time. And there is a separate warning that the upcoming U.S. election could motivate Kim's regime to do something dangerous to provoke the United States. That warning comes from the Center for Strategic and International Studies, CSIS, and is published on its website, Beyond Parallel.
I think it could be a sixth nuclear test. It could be launching of their rocket to put a satellite in orbit, which demonstrates ballistic missile capability. Doing a major test would be a way of trying to intimidate the incoming president.
Just this year alone, Kim Jong-un has fired off at least 15 missile tests and 2 nuclear bomb tests, making 5 overall. Just last month, North Korea tested 2 Musadan missiles. They failed, leaving large burn marks on roads.
The burn marks here and here tell us that the missiles probably exploded upon launch or shortly thereafter.
But Kim's regime did successfully test a Musadan this past summer. Experts say it's a major threat.
The Musadan, as you can see, is launched off of this truck. It is a mobile missile. That means that it's very difficult to track it and to detect its presence before launch, unlike a silo-based missile.
It's a missile which could carry a nuclear warhead as far as Guam, where America has military bases. North Korea is also improving its longer-range intercontinental ballistic missiles. America's top intelligence official warns of its capabilities once it's flight tested.
Potentially could reach parts of the United States, certainly including Alaska and Hawaii.
A key question tonight, why would Kim want to provoke the U.S. around the time America elects its next president?
These are just not random. North Korea chooses particular windows that they know will gain maximum attention from the world and the United States in particular.
Nominal first stage performance. T-minus 5 minutes and counting.
There's been another mass shooting in America. This time in a